going to talk about your company has a brain problem, and here's what it looks like to fix it. We're going to talk about the difference between stored knowledge and retrievable knowledge and why that gap is costing you more than you think. What we're going to cover, the geometry of a living business brain, what the 3 layers are, what the flows between them are, the difference between a large language model index and RAG, retrieval augmented generation, the self-improving loop, what happens to the system's accuracy after 3 months of usage. Then I'm going to talk about sleep mode, consolidation, file paths, memory updates, all done by AI, and what changed for a client when we moved from scattered documents to a live knowledge layer, and how to set it up with cron routines. Little backstory, we did a knowledge base for a researcher, and that knowledge base ended up generating her Instagram reels that were doing 2,000 views each on very highly synthesized information. So cross-domain information on polyvagal theory, which is some of the hardest, most densest science to understand. Well, I'm sure there's harder science, but it's just very cross-domain. So anyways, after this video, hopefully you'll set up RAG, retrieval augmented generation, and file trees and cloud file trees and sync across your devices, and then have AI index and maintain it for you. Then you'll understand that the valuable thing here isn't storage, it's retrieval. And retrieval requires AI architecture, not better organization. Think LLM wikis. That was from Carpathy recently. So yeah, I mean, who am I? My name's Jeff. I'm a AI architect. I've been working on AI ever since 2023, cooking up AI architectures, working with various influencers on YouTube. I'm not going to name names, but I built, most of their products and infrastructure. And I've worked as a consultant with a handful of clients. We just signed a new client today. It was a local business. But the problem that I've been really trying to solve is making AI sound like us, making AI sound like you and me. And that problem has been, it's all about the data. It's all about the knowledge base that goes into the agent to make it sound like you. And so there's a couple there. So this is more of building knowledge bases for companies. And I'm going to show you some of the main problems that it solves here. But you can also use this to solve more problems than just this. This solves creating outputs that sound like you, training knowledge bases on your own material, your own transcripts to create content, Instagram reels, writing that sounds like you, and do it consistently, repeatably, like as a machine, right? Mechanistically in a workflow. But in terms of company knowledge bases, let me ask you this. What if we could just clone your founder or your leadership into an AI or into a simple GPT, and then all the employees can just ask leadership questions and get real answers real time without wasting anybody's time? The problem is, and business owners will understand this, if you hire new people, there's usually a 6-month ramp up or more to train them. And that's a drain on your time, that's a drain on your employees and your resources. And sometimes they just churn, and it's a complete waste of money, complete waste of time. The next thing is, if a key person leaves, they leave a knowledge gap. Like, where does your knowledge exist in your business? What's in emails? It's in people's brains. It's in shared drives. It's in documents nobody opens. So this tool, we're going to show how to build a living business brain and get your team to adopt its use, and it'll be useful to your team in your company. And I think this is really good for like lawyers, really good for people who have to do a lot of reading every day, a lot of analysis. And so this is kind of the 3 layers here. So like we said earlier, we're going to talk about kind of the 3 layers in the geometry and the different flows. I'm going to go into a couple different concepts here. I think it might be useful to understand some of the research behind this. Like, this whole topic goes into the whole second brain idea. And then it goes into philosophy. Like, there's people like Andy Clark and David Chalmers who wrote ideas about externalism and the extended mind back in the 1990s. And I have a little video clip here that you can see, and I might put a couple video clips of what the extended mind is. But basically, it's just the philosophy of mind that the mind doesn't sit exclusively in the brain or even the body, but extends. It really means that the mind, and it's funny because someone he probably was sitting around taking psychedelic mushrooms, and he's like, "Yeah, we're all one, man," and like the mind expands into everything. I could tell you from my own like research into like phenomenology and philosophy that seems true, and there's other more pragmatic ideas of like the mastermind and like vibrations of thought and how they manifest out into the world, and then you get reflections of them, and like your memories are like encoded in the environment and like in the people around you, etc. So it's that idea that like your brain just really is extended. In philosophy there's this idea of res extenda or whatever. That was like, I think therefore I am. That was like Rene Descartes, like the beginning of like really good philosophy. Anyways, the usefulness in the business, in my own personal business, has been like rapid synthesis, rapid like knowledge matrices, the ability to generate extremely good AI outputs, not generic AI slop, but extremely good outputs, stuff that sounds exactly like me, like exactly how I want, specific stuff, synthesized stuff that abides by my own semantics. And we're actually going to get into deep what semantics is. Semantics is basically the idea that you have meaning and not just a keyword. So like a keyword would be like dog, but like semantics is like dog equals animal, and like semantics looks at the whole context, and it'll not just pull dogs, but it'll pull animals, and it'll pull a whole taxonomy of like chunks related, and then the AI like runs through it quickly and then has the context. Anyways, this stuff's really interesting. That's why I built a whole AI business around it. And so I just wanted to share that. Anyways, the living business brain. So we have all these documents. We have documents, emails, recordings, SOPs, and notes. You have stuff in Notion folders, file folders, Google Drive, Excel spreadsheets, Google Word docs. You have voice memos, voice recordings, voice notes. You have email threads. You even have your new AI chat threads. And all this stuff is spread all across all these different platforms, and none of them are really synthesized. None of them are indexed, put together. None of them are really useful by themselves. To make all of this useful is to put them all together. And that's kind of what I've done. You can see sort of my file trees here on the left. Is what you're looking at is literally everything in my business is all in these file trees. They're just nested file trees. They're all talking to each other. And AI can read all of this. And so the ingestion layer is basically an automation that you run that pulls in from all these different sources and brings it into your file folders. Now, there's really interesting developments in AI right now where you have cloud-based file folders. So it's not just files that just live on your computer. It's no longer just a bunch of files, but it's like these you can just think of like putting like Obsidian in the cloud. Like as soon as you put Obsidian in the cloud and it syncs from local to cloud, you have an extremely powerful memory layer, an extremely powerful AI system. And so ingestion is this idea of how do I pull in relevant files and bring them all together? But also ingestion is all about like the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is like how like look at like all this information, just pull the key points, like 20% of this information that's actually necessary. And it's about compression. It's about taking all this information and just getting what's useful and bringing it into one place. So you have, email conversations. You only just want the key details. And I'm going to actually show you a really cool paper that was published on memory GPTs and how memory updates from like chat conversations and stuff like that in a little bit. So the next layer of this is structure. And what we're really doing is we're structuring your data, we're structuring good context. And it's a lot to do on your own. This is why AI is so amazing, is because we can take all those key points, key things from your notes, key SOPs, key recordings, key emails, key documents, and we can structure it and index it by domain, topic, relationship, and create synced file trees, cross-referenced file trees, cross-indexed files, which become extremely good context and extremely dense and populated pathways for LLMs to go through and query and read files and understand where everything is, how it all connects, and how well your knowledge is interconnected and indexed will show how well your AI performs, whether that's whether that's communicating just like you do, whether that's the accuracy of the information, or whether that's outputs that really reflect exactly what you want it to do. So that's another layer. And then there's the retrieval layer. The retrieval layer is going back in and querying that and pulling good information out. And the retrieval layer, again, that's AI, and it's going and it's doing semantic search, not keyword search. It's not a Google search. It's not, control F to find something. It's looking at meaning, and it's looking at the meaning underneath in that structured layer of all those documents in that second brain. And then it pulls in tons of context, and then AI looks at all that context and outputs just what's relevant, right? So there's a lot of processing in the back end. The idea is that the 80-20 rule plays a lot in knowledge bases because AI is reading hundreds of pages, putting it all together way faster than we could, and just pulling out good context. And just think of this. Your best models, with some argue have 1 trillion parameters, have 1 million token context window. And that's where we're at. Some people say that the LLMs start to hallucinate as you get into those if you use larger and larger context windows. I haven't seen that, but I'm typically in between 20,000 to 200,000 tokens per call. And I'll usually compress or compact my chats, but I'm using like 100 million tokens a day or something like that, and it's costing me very little. So anyways, that's just going down a different path. But the next thing is just AI synthesis, right? So it's retrieving the meaning, and it's reading it, and it's forming an answer, and then citing sources, right? And then you have the answer to your user. Those are the main layers. That's the way I think about it. AI is doing a lot of the work. The main things to look at is what is semantics, what does taxonomy and indexing mean, and then from that synthesis you're getting some sort of output. So the better your inputs, the better synthesis you're going to get. And so the ingestion layer is like step one. When we go into businesses, we basically want to understand where are the documents, where are the files, can we store the files in the cloud, or does everything want to be local hosted? Okay, and then if everything's going to be local hosted, how can we make it secured? And then how do we set up AI prompts to structure things the way that the business owner would like and make sense to the business owner with just make it make sense. And so this is why AI installations are challenging, because it's not as straightforward as a lot of business owners think. There's thinking behind it. There's organization, there's naming, your file names, your file paths. Getting things organized is a huge part. And so one thing I'm working on is actually having AI agents actually do the indexing, AI agents actually doing the file organization on a daily basis itself, creating memory folders, updating its own memory folders itself, and does it for the whole file stack. And this is the idea of sleep mode. And sleep mode is something you can program into your AI harnesses to, at the end of every day, like literally while you're sleeping, turn your computer back on, go through the day's logs, go through the file paths, go through the folders, resynthesize, reorganize, reindex, find the connections, link it all back together, compress it, get the 80-20 rule and everything, add it back into memory, update all the memory folders, all the memory files across all the file trees, and then you have better context. Why? Because large language models have their every time you send a new chat, it's a blank slate. And so every time I spin up a new chat, I point it to a file tree and I say, look here. So if you have an automation that's running, you spin up an automation and you always point an automation at a file tree or a memory folder or memory file, a context file that's really well indexed. You're pointing it at a table of contents for any automation or any task that you're running. So what's the difference between indexes and retrieval augmented generation? It's actually a huge difference. Indexes are, let's see if I have them here. I'll just basically explain. So indexes is what we were talking about here, where you have an ingestion, a structuring, and like retrieval. Well, actually, you can use both for all these layers. RAG retrieval is based on embeddings, so you're taking words and you're turning them into math, into vectors, and then the AI goes back and retrieves those vectors with nearest neighbors, k nearest neighbors, and brings back meaning from a vector space. You have to do it embeddings, you have to chunk, and it's honestly, RAG is becoming less and less popular as models get stronger because models can just read through file trees and indexes and wikis and retain better context. And so a lot of people are moving away from embeddings, one, because it's super complicated, two, because it's a lot of chunking, and chunking gets really messy and it's not easy to control, and three, and LLM wikis are way easier. So it just depends on, because the architecture is to put your files in the cloud in a container so that the business has everything, so that the AI can access everything without being on one person's computer. So that's just another way of thinking about it. Let's see. So we could talk about self-improving loops a little bit. The way that I like to do it is I like to have logs. So every single day, anything that the AI is doing at the last step on any of your routines should be log these changes into a logs file. And then you would have another routine or another task that says, check out these logs and basically condense these logs or take out key points from these logs for the day, and then generate tasks for the next day. And so you have this kind of update loop of like what needs to get done, what has been done, and it gives you kind of a measurement of where you're at. Self-improvement loops. There's a couple different ways to do self-improvement loops, but one is auto research, where you're trying to have some sort of relevant like output. Anyways, I don't want to go super deep into this, but the point is that over time, if you have the correct knowledge management routines and tasks, and you're condensing and adding things to memory, that memory gets better and better over time. It understands your processes better and better. It understands your business better and better. And then your skills will get updated, better memory, better index, better cross references, and the tools start to get synthetic or syntactic. Syntactic means, and I'm not trying to use better words, this is just how I think about knowledge architecture in general. I'm not trying to use fancy words. I'm just trying to say that knowledge stacks. You have nested workflows within nested workflows that get re-nested and resynthesized, and at some point they encapsulate the entire workflow. At some point your workflow is finished, it's completely synthesized. At some point there's no more information that would ever be needed to get a task done. And at that point, you start entering like taxonomies of knowledge, like higher order knowledge, which is why it's really important. This is why this is good for researchers and not just businesses, is because your research at some point will hit like a paradigm breaking moment where the AI has all of the context of the entire domain, and there's no other thing for you to do except to cross synthesize in another domain. And once you start cross synthesizing in another domain, an entire new layer of knowledge starts appearing. And this is what a synthesis layer is. So this is what I'm talking about with interactions being logged, and then the knowledge base updates itself, and then it refines itself. Anyways, the best way to make loops is to just make routines and automated tasks that read from saved files and then write to saved files at the end, and updating memory. Now, we have a really interesting research report, and I've been looking at a lot of interesting things on sleep mode, where just like a human being, when they goes to sleep, it condenses and stores memories. Same thing here with memory from conversations. The AI is listening to conversations. Hey, how was your day today? Fun. My boyfriend James baked me a birthday cake. Oh wow, happy birthday. The AI looks at the context and adds to its memory. The birthday is February 7th. The boyfriend is named James. And it just saves these relevant things back into memory. And then for this example, did you do anything else to celebrate your birthday? Yeah, we went to Six Flags. And then it goes into its storage and searches Six Flags, and it can find all the dates where Six Flags was mentioned, etc., etc. So there's a lot of interesting research being done on memory, and we're building these systems into companies. Like, I could literally go in and give my AI all this as context, this entire research report, and say, how does this map into my current architecture? can we implement? And by spending 100 million tokens today, I'll have a working GPT agent, and I'll show you guys how to do that in other videos, or we'll just build a GPT agent into your business. What's next? Yeah, consolidation and memory updates. The idea is that at the top of every single like file tree, you have basically a memory file, and you want to run basically a routine every single day that looks at those main files at every root of all your projects in your files system, in your drive or file tree. And it basically looks at logs, and then it writes back into memory, and it updates memories and updates logs. And another function you could add into that is update skills, or look at the different skills in those file trees based on my logs and based on these updated memories. What sources would improve the workflows in the skills? What other files would cross-reference well and help add better context? And I don't really think there's anything wrong with synthesis, because anything that has higher order synthesis knowledge can always be distilled down. And so it's almost like a philosophical problem. It's like a philosophical thing. It's like the better cross-referenced it is, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Adding more context is never really a bad thing, because you can always just from a large set of context, like 1,000,000 tokens of context, just pull out 100 tokens of what you need. And so, let's say I don't want to give like crazy examples on this. I'll just keep moving forward with the video. So a living business brain. Before a new hire is asking your business a question, waiting for someone to be free to help them answer it, gets a bad answer, asks again in 2 weeks, key person leaves, knowledge disappears, same questions answered 200 times per year. I mean, this is the main one. Now, with a company knowledge base, the new hire just types in the chat in your internal systems, your onboarding systems. You get a complete answer in 8 seconds with referenced, file paths, links to tools, SOPs for that exact thing, and it's just rinse and repeat from there. It empowers your employees. It doesn't replace them. AI makes your people extremely more effective, more creative, and you're not hand-holding. Business doesn't become a fucking babysitting. Business doesn't become like glorified babysitting, a bunch of entitled people wanting jobs and wanting to be handheld and taught how to produce value. From an entrepreneurial perspective, it's insane what I see with corporations and businesses, and the mindset of people who are like, just give us jobs, where it's like, well, with this system, I actually can give you a job, because if you can read and write, then everything's basically laid out on a plate for you. After, you can see the source document, you can trust, and you don't have to say, are you sure? Are you sure? It frees up people's memories and bandwidth so they can focus on new things and learning new skills. They don't have to keep iterating on like old knowledge, right? They can focus on doing new things. This one I think is slept on. The client questions get an instant cited answer. So like in sales, customer support, pricing, objections, FAQs, this is huge for what we do with our sales systems. The client asks a question, what are your prices? When are you available? It queries a calendar, it queries your pricing sheets and gives them instant answers. And things just get handled. So it just really solves a lot of problems. A structured knowledge base solves just an infinite amount of problems across a lot of different sectors of the business. So in terms of like sales enablement, like people come in and they get sales playbooks. They ask the business brain, how do I sell this customer? What do I say when he says this? What is our pricing on this? What is our time? Is this project done yet? What is the status on this project? For content generation, this is our brand and marketing guidelines. Here's our copywriting principles. Here's our ad templates. Here's our ad creatives. Customer facing chat. I mean, it can be completely automated where the customer is just chatting with a persona that's connected to a knowledge base. All the AI agents can share the context of the living business brain. No, context will never hurt. And it can also be role-based. New hire onboarding, giving the new hire the links to everything they need, access to everything they need. Some stuff I'm working on internally is role-based access, easily revoking permissions from specific tools, letting the employee put their own tools in. If you have a structured workflow where they use their own logins, their own tools, but your own playbooks, right? So there's a lot of different ways to set up company knowledge bases in a safe, secure way where company knowledge is distributed to the places that it really needs to be. And then there's less need for meetings. There's less and less need for meetings. And the only time that you need meetings, like you don't need all these boring politics playing corporate meetings when you can just query a growing knowledge brain. And we have ideas on how everybody would have their own kind of branch, and then at the end of the day the agent would ingest everybody's logs into the branch, and then the company brain would then go into sleep mode and process everything that the entire company has done, update the company's memory, and then every day fresh you just look at what has the company done. Instead of having a meeting, you have a couple tabs that show where we're at and what to focus on now. And so the paradigms of business are going to be able to change so quickly. And it's really just about changing the way you think. It's not about the tool anymore. It's changing the way you think about business. It's changing the way you think about org charts. Collaborative businesses, collaborative workspaces, and not hierarchies. Hierarchies are primitive now in comparison, especially when anybody on your team can have access to the entire organization's SOPs and playbooks. That means organizations are going to change as well. And I think this is a good thing. And I never really thought the hierarchy thing really worked. Employees hate their bosses. Employees never want to do what their bosses say. Like the only thing that actually worked in the past was who has the most money. And now what works in the past is now what works in the future is who has the most context. And whoever has the most context is going to be able to get the better results. It's not whoever has the money is the boss. Whoever has the most context will end up getting the money. This also makes the longevity of your organization a lot longer lasting. The organization, unless your files get deleted off the cloud or off a local backup server, your organization will be able to live and pass on forever. Its APIs, its tool connections will persist into the next generation. The SOPs, the creativity, the workflows, the prompts, the playbooks will all pass to the next generation. And if somebody wants to keep it going, all they have to do is query, ask questions, and get access. All right, so I'll just end with this. So we built a knowledge base for one of our clients, like I was saying earlier, and it was a researcher, a corporate researcher, and we were able to basically generate Instagram reel scripts from the knowledge base, put them into an AI avatar, and post them on Instagram, all automated in their voice. It was an AI avatar of them, sounded like them with a voice clone, a video clone, and specific templates, and we were getting 2,000 views on short form. I'm very passionate about the AI avatar voice clones and things like that because it's not AI generated slop when you do it correctly. A lot of people hate AI slop, hate the AI avatars. The point is the messaging. The point in marketing and business will always be the messaging, and it'll always be the value of the content. If you have research that's groundbreaking research, that's paradigm shifting research, the research itself combined with that new school paradigm of short form content becomes extremely interesting and a really good business building framework that I've been evolving, where we're combining modern list building with personal branding agents, is what I call it. It's a personal branding agent, short form content generation, long form content generation, to basically pre-sell or educate your own cold audiences and bring them through a modern list building funnel, an engagement funnel where people get educated on your products and services and offers. And then coming in, there really is no sale anymore. Like filling out a contract is just pretty much paperwork. And so this comes from a lot of entrepreneurs in my space, guys like Bulletproof John, Jeremy Haynes, Russell Brunson. These guys have different methodologies. The propaganda engine, the Venus flytrap, the Epiphany bridge. These are all ways to basically, through content, market and sell your products. Instead of forcing sales so much, you can use a second brain to communicate on your behalf on repeat every day and build a very nuanced marketing messaging system across all the sectors of the awareness across all the belief systems, across all the objections, FAQs. And so after they've consumed, 7-8 hours of your short form content or even your long form content, purchasing from you is a complete no-brainer. So we've applied these knowledge bases not only to company files, but we've applied these knowledge bases into content systems, marketing systems, sales systems, persona systems, AI clones, AI avatars as a fundamental business building use case in brand management, brand development that actually builds the ad creatives, it builds the marketing campaigns, it builds the educational videos, the tutorial videos that would be necessary to educate your audience enough to use your products or services, to sign up for your services or coaching, consulting, join your programs, etc. So there's good research, there's good stuff coming out with cloud file trees. That's something that I would look into if you're into this stuff, and that's something we're going to be rolling out for our clients. Managed agents in the cloud, but also our basic setups are inside actual file trees. So if there's a company computer, like if you have dedicated company computers, or even Google Drive is a good place to set it up. But Google Drive is a little bit slower queries, so it's obviously easier for AI to just read file trees right on your local computer. So anyways, I hope that this made sense. One structured knowledge base. You have infinite downstream uses. It's the foundation of AI. This is the first thing we install for our clients, whether they're researchers, businesses, content creators, influencers, whoever we're working with. This is the first thing we install. And we install different AI agents at every single level of the loop. An ingestion agent, a structuring agent, a retrieval agent, a synthesis agent across the company knowledge base. If you guys want a demo, real examples of our own internal builds, our own platforms, just click the link in the description, and I'll leave you with that.